one and all, welcome to another episode of Baggers Chat. My name is Mitch Pattinson, and as always, I'm joined by Ethan Duffy. And of course, tonight, 9:22 p.m. at night, we are previewing Carlton v Melbourne this week. A bit of a scary opposition, but of course, it's round 12. So amazing how quickly the season has gone. I reckon we say that almost every week. But of course, it's this week, 2nd of June, 7:50 p.m. at the MCG. Of course, it's our away game, so we'll see us most likely in the white class jumper. But Duffy boy, how are you, mate?
I'm good, mate. I think a lot of Carlton supporters can relate this week over a couple of things that's kind of G'd us up a bit, but I think anything can really G us up at the moment. The way we're playing definitely isn't. So off-field stuff is definitely G'ing us up, but no, I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, people have seen our review and seen us talk about, the last couple of results. And I think we're a bit more positive, I think, the last couple of days. I think you have to be, otherwise you'll go psycho. So, no, I'm looking forward to the challenge. Melbourne's a pretty good side, but they've had their issues this year as well. I know they're fourth, but it's an important game for them considering they lost last week. Of course, they're coming in off a loss, so it's going to be important for us to just give them a challenge, I think. And I think if we play a better brand of footy, we can really stack it up against them.
Yeah, completely spot on. Of course, you have to play against them after a loss because I'm sure they will be very much wanting a win. But I think, as we spoke before the start of the episode, I think we are almost due for a win. Like, I don't think, not necessarily I don't know how you see it, but from my end, I'm not seeing it more as a win, just a change up of brand football.
Yeah.
That's what I'm wanting to see. So, of course, we'll get into a lot of things tonight, but we'll start off with the news that came out. I think it was Monday night, and of course, escalated on Tuesday morning. Of course, so Cara Wilson on Monday night, Footy Classified, came out and stated that Sam Doherty and Patrick Cripps, two of our mainlanders at the club, was staying at a boutique hotel. I'll put in the clip right here of what she actually said.
Before the Sydney game, I think Sam Doherty and Patrick Cripps didn't stay at the team hotel. They stayed at a boutique hotel in Paddington. I'm just making the comment.
And then Patrick Cripps, of course, came out on Tuesday morning, and I'm sure a lot of Carlton supporters has actually seen what the post was, but I'll also put that in here about what he actually said. And it's pretty much a kind of a fight back at the media. Like, he's not being brought down by the media because he's going to fight back at the media and say that is completely and factually incorrect. And my word, when it said, it pisses me off, mate. Did my shoulders just rise a little bit this week? I don't know what it is, but it's probably more than likely just Cripps just bringing back the Carlton supporters once again after last week, our shit performance last week, just bringing the Carlton supporters back in. But also, on the other side of the spectrum, this might be sort of the line in the sand moment that we've been looking for, we've been crying out for all year. This might be the moment where your captain has been, I guess, dragged through the media in a sense where it's a pretty big thing if he's staying away from the hotel, which was completely and factually incorrect. And now for him to say it is completely wrong, it might be a line in the sand. So, Daff, what did you think of this sort of whole, I guess, when it first came out, it was a big thing. And when Cripps responded, how did you feel after his response?
Yeah, I actually didn't actually watch Footy Classified on Monday. I obviously saw it the day after. I usually do watch it, but I missed out on that episode. But yeah, it's just, first of all, what she's saying, like, that's just like, whoever gave her that, she's definitely getting rid of that sauce. That's what we're gonna say. But no, it's just it's not good enough from her end. She's definitely had some issues over the last few years with that kind of stuff, and I think players tend to kind of hold back and try to protect their reputation in a sense and not go at the media. But I think it was a perfect response. I think he had to do it. Otherwise, people are going to be starting to question his leadership like we have been. Not in terms of, getting rid of the captaincy, but, on-field leadership. And, it was fantastic. And like you said, with, what he said, it wasn't too overboard. He didn't have a go at her personally. He just had a go at how she was attacking him as a leader and that's like a captain of the football club. Because he was saying you can talk about my on-field stuff all your life, 100%. That's their job. They get ridiculed or they're on the pedestal in a sense when they're on field. But when they're off field, and he's a perfect leader for our club. He's kind of dragged us through some shit times, and I'll tell you what, right now he's probably a guy who wants the best out of the club. And that's why he's still there. What is he, 28? He hasn't played a final. People make jokes about that, but there's some pretty clear loyalty there, because I'm sure there was definitely some suitors when he was out of contract a few years ago going, geez, you can come over to Freo and you can go play in our young midfield. Yeah. But he obviously opted for the 5-year deal at Carlton, which shows you the person he is. And, I've met him multiple times, and you can see the leadership qualities he has, whether it's outside the club. I bloody saw him down the street after, the grand final parade stuff out the MCG, got a photo with him, and he said, have a good weekend and stuff like that. He just doesn't need to do that. He doesn't have to do that stuff, but he does, because he knows that he's such a massive role model in the community. And I think they'll pave the way for other players now, I think. Just not letting the media get away with stuff, because I feel like the mainstream media has become obviously clickbait, and I think that's why channels like Blue Abroad and ourselves and other channels, Saints TV and all those types of channels are growing, because we're not here for clickbait. We're here for real fact and from fans that know more about the club and aren't here to put down the club or just do stuff like Caro does. I think it's just not good enough. But fantastic from the skipper, mate. I was very pleased.
Yeah. Completely well said, Daff. I think you shaped it well in terms of how Cripps' leadership, how we view him as a leader, because there's a lot of supporters out there that have been crying out for a Hodge sort of leadership, sort of captain, even a Vossi sort of captain, like his sort of brutality, in a sense of him as a captain. But you need to remember that we're not back there. If we want to move forward, we actually need to start fresh in a way. And I reckon when Cripps was the sole leader, when he became the sole leader last year, I think it was last year or 2020. I think it was last year when he first became the sole leader. That was just great, because he actually had that chance where we all just had a fresh start in a way. And it wasn't like you had the co-captains and stuff, and credit to Sam Docherty, because I reckon he was a really good captain as well. But it was good that they gave the sole captain to one of them. And of course they've gone with Cripps. And I think with him, the number one thing with him is loyalty. And when he signed the deal with Carlton, when it was about, I was shitting myself because I thought he was going to leave. I generally thought he was going to leave, because I'm like, this is going to test his loyalty. And unfortunately, I kind of feel bad for him, and I kind of would rather him kind of chase that success. But he decided to stay here because he knew how great the culture was, but also he wants to be the guy to lift the cup up when, hopefully, if he gets the opportunity, he wants to be lifting the cup up in the navy blue rather than any other club. And to me, when he signed that deal, I'm just like, that's our captain. Like that's the guy that we've been crying out for. And just the loyalty was the number one thing with for me with Cripps. It's just, I'm so pleased that he was not scared to fight back as well. Because there are people that are a little bit tiptoeing around me like, oh, okay, well, it's the media. They're kind of untouchable. They get away with so much, the media, and we're not having a crack at the media. But if they come out on national television and say shit like that when it's completely incorrect, of course this guy has the right to say, I'm sorry, you can have a go at my character. You can have a go at my on-field performances and my team's performances as a captain. But if you have a go at my character when he's completely incorrect, that's when it crosses the line. And I mean, if I was in his position, I'll do the exact same thing. But it's also a good thing in a sense, because hopefully this week we see a bit of a different Cripps and he can bring his side. And of course, that has to happen to the captain, because he's the guy that's going to lead the club out on Friday night. So before we move into some of the lines, of course, the back line, forward line, midfield, and ruck, we're going to touch on the injuries. So last week, a lot of injuries, of course, occurred. We're just going to go through the full injury list. We won't spend too much time on each, but of course, at the end of the list, I'm going to ask you, Daffy Boy, to to kind of touch on what you think is a big out, and also, of course, of how long all these players are going to be out. But of course, to start off, Ollie Holland's collarbone. I think it's meant to be about 6 to 8 weeks, which is very stiff on him. He's played a very good. He's played very good ever since the start of the season, and ever since his debut, he's been absolutely fantastic. So stiff on him, but it's probably good because it gives him a little bit of a chance to maybe come back in the VFL, have that sort of experience, then come back into the AFL side. So Nick Newman's the next one, a hamstring injury. Not too sure much about that. George Hewitt, concussion. He's guaranteed to miss this week. Mark Pitnet, hand. So that's, of course, scans have revealed a fractured hand. But I think he had surgery today, or maybe it was the day before. But Corey Dern was one that I was like, oh, that's come out of nowhere. So that's, of course, a knee injury. So that's quite serious. Patrick Cripps, ankle, but I think he should be fine to play. Lockie Cowan, finger. Jack Martin, calf. What a surprise there, Duffy boy. David Cunningham, calf. And, of course, Sam Durden, hamstring. So out of all those guys, Duffy boy, of course, there's a lot of big names there. Who do you think is the biggest player out of those guys that you really would love to see out there on the weekend, but of course you won't be able to?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of the guys, definitely the guys who went out on the weekend against Sydney. I think probably the number one guy is probably Pito. I think he's, especially this week, of course, the week he's out, we've got Gordon and Grundy to face. So that's a shame, but we're going to have to sort that out because we did it last year. Why can't we have a crack at him again? But yeah, that's a bugger. I think Newey's a bugger as well. He's just kind of consistent. It's good to have those guys on the side. I thought Dirds' form the last few weeks hasn't been fantastic, but obviously it's shit to have an injury. So hopefully he recovers quickly. I think 6 or 7 weeks, which is a kind of annoying kind of time period, a little bit too long. Yeah. And obviously, I think Cripps will be fine, like you said. And I think I said last week, I think it's time for Jack Martin, almost. I don't think he's in my ins and outs currently because I don't really know how he is right now. But if he's fit enough to play the ones, I don't see why not, really. And obviously, Sam Durden's a bugger with his 2 to 3 because I think he's been a bit stiff that he's been injured the last 5 weeks, I think, because he would have got a gig, but I think it's going to be tough for him to get in once he is fit again, because I think Weeder's performed well on the weekend. I don't think he'll be dropped, Weedering. I just don't see it ever happening. But yeah, no, it's good to see him back. But yeah, injury list is a lot, but definitely coverable because you can see some of the guys playing in the twos on the weekend clearly are best 22 players. So we'll touch on that in the inclusions.
Yeah. And of course, going into this week against like a big competition in Melbourne, I think this is the kind of the chance for us to, of course, we can test our depth, but also we are going to have our backs against the walls on Friday night. But it gives us, I always see this with teams when they're down and out with injuries and stuff, and there's shit going on, they find something within themselves, and they actually remember that they're playing for themselves as well. Or like, yes, they're playing for the jumper that they wear. They, of course, are playing for the supporters. But what just confuses me sometimes when players don't try is just the individuals within themselves, like how they're not actually playing for themselves just astounds me. And I'm sure they would, but just there's always something within the club when it's too many injuries, blah, 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 backs against the walls. They're playing guys in the VFL. They just find themselves a way to play well as a team. And I don't know, I'm really excited to see this. I'm not confident for a win, but as I said earlier, I just am really excited to see something different, Duffy boy. That's all I'm asking for. But before we move into the potential inclusions, of course, we have to touch on Adam Chera. He is free to play this week, which is great. I think the Lawyers have had more wins than us this season, Duffy boy. So, of course, he is free to play. So he won't be, I'm not sure about you, Duffy boy, but he won't be in my outs because, of course, he's going to play this week. But Duffy boy, potential inclusions, who are you bringing in and who are you bringing out?
Yep, so I'll start with my outs like I usually do. I think, obviously, we'll just go with the injuries. Yeah, Hewitt, concussion, and Holland's collarbone, Newman, hammy, Pito, hand. So they're just forced changes, aren't they? And with my unforced changes, I've got Ed Kerno and Brody Kemp omitted. Both of them are omitted. So that's 6 changes out of the side. But I think I'm not necessarily dropping Kemp on form. I'm just more in a sense of how our lineup's going to go against this Demon side. So in for mine, Zach Fisher back into the side. I think he had 39 on the weekend, which was fucked. I think I watched the first half and he was everywhere against Sydney. They're not the greatest twos, but he did play well. He's played well the last couple of weeks, as he should at that level. I've got a debutant. Replacing another young fella, and it's Jackson Binns. I think he's in. I think he's due to come in. It's like a very like for like. Seriously, it's quite unbelievable they're from the same kind of draft class, because it's showing that we're kind of prioritising run, especially in that last draft with Cow and Holland and Binns in the side. So Binsy will be in, hopefully, and another guy back in the side, a new blue in Chincotta, predominantly probably replacing a Newman. I know you can bring in Cowan in, but I'm just not sure if he's 100% ready after his finger. Maybe give him a week in the VFL. Another in. It's so many ins. I'm like going through the whole side almost here. There's the ins, but Jack Silvani in for mine. I think he's he played down back on the weekend against the Swans and had 26, and he was taking kick-outs. I didn't know what I was watching at one. I think Lewis Young was playing full forward in the twos last week. Yeah, he was. It was ridiculous. So I was turning on. I'm like, what's going on here? But no, I think Jack Silvani is in, and I think the guy to touch on as well, Lewis Young in as well. And the sub, Lockie O'Brien, will be in the team. I think he just provides a bit more run for us off that sub, other than a Curnow. So obviously he's kind of straight swap for Curnow. But my reasoning behind a Kemp omission and a Young in is because if we don't bring Young in, I think it's just our tall stocks are very low in a sense. I think because obviously Silvani played back last week. I don't think he does against the Demons. I think he plays forward and he's the second ruck, and then we put Youngie down back. So we're not really kind of undermanned and undersized like we kind of were from like round 14 onwards last year. I felt there was a few games there where we had Kemp as our key back and Lewis Young as our key backs, and it was just a bit all over the place, obviously due to injury. But I think that really opens it up for Softs to be the second ruck, and I think he can give it a crack. I know it's going to be tough against two premier ruckmen in Gawn and Grundy, which has been good to watch. But it's going to be another chance at TDK, like I've been saying, Pato. Break it open, young fella. Break it open. Get it done. You're on the G. Friday night footy. Everyone's watching. He tends to cop a bit of shit I see on social media about his just potential and do we need to really re-sign him or but if you want everyone to shut up about that, break open the game for us and get it done against the Premier Ruckman in Gawn.
And then of course Gawn and Grundy out there as well. It's a big chance for Silvani to come back into the side, but also because there's some games when I really like him in second ruck. There is games I'm like, yes, this is what we want.
Yeah.
But then there's games I was like, maybe not Sauce. Maybe not Saucy Boy. So, but of course, TDK, I'm really excited to see him once again as that number one ruck. Of course, he's looking for that sole ruck role. But if we can somehow keep him and he somehow can find a way to accept that we want him in as that ruck forward role, that's going to be an unbelievable contract signing. So I just hope that TDK can sign for next year, of course, but the next few years as well. But I just want him to go out there on Friday, not worry about any contract extensions, not worry about anything like that. You go out there and you play your football. You're up against two of the premier ruckmen in the comp. You go out there and you just dominate. So that's all I'm asking for. So, one question before I move on to my ins and outs. Did you bring in Paddy Dow?
No.
Okay.
He would have been in if Chera was suspended. I would have brought him in.
Yeah.
But based on these outs, I think I just think we need some more run. So I put Fisher in instead of Dow, which is stiff on Dow. I think it's stiff, but gee, it's going to be tough. It's unbelievable how he hasn't got a spot yet. But it's I don't know. They just don't. Bossy just doesn't seem to be a fan of him. I don't know. Yeah. He might. It's tough. It is tough.
Yeah. I mean, completely spot on. So I'll touch on my outs. So of course, Ollie Holland's out, Mark Pittonet out, Nick Newman out, Corey Durden out, George Hewitt out, and Ed Curnow.
Jono. Yep.
He is the omission. I don't want him anywhere near the side for a couple of weeks, Daffy boy. Let's hope he doesn't play for the rest of the season. I don't know, but my gut feel says that Voss is going to play him. That's my gut feel. But if, of course, we always use this segment as what we would do if we were the coaches. So, ins now, Daffy boy. So, Bins, in.
Yeah.
Brought him in. Jack Silvani, in.
Yeah.
Lewis Young, in. Zach Fisher, in. Alex Chin-Cotter, Chin-Cotter,
Yes.
Daffy boy, in. Now, who's the last one, I wonder? You can name Lockie O'Brien, you can name Jack Martin, you can name even David fucking Cunningham, Daffy boy. But I am going with Paddy Dow. He's in.
Paddy Dow.
He's in for mine. And
he's in as who's a sub?
So sub, Jack Martin.
Okay.
I've got Jack Martin as sub because, as you said at the start of the episode, I think we need to see how he goes with sub and maybe play him for a half or a quarter for that run and see how he goes before I get him in for a full game. But Jack Martin sub, and you've got Dowd coming in, and I think it's good to have those extra, because I always like, if one position goes out, you replace that position with the same sort of player. So, of course, Hollands would be for Bins. Silvani would be for Pitnet, in a sense. Nick Newman would be out for Lewis Young. Corey Durden out for Zach Fisher. George Hewitt out for Paddy Dow. And Chin-Cotter kind of in there as well for another defender, because he's been playing more as that rebound defender, like the Mitch McGovern role, in a sense, in the VFL. And it will be interesting to see what they do if they bring Chin-Cotter in, what his role will be, with Mitch McGovern being in the side as well. So that's one thing. But out of those ins and outs, Staff, especially with Paddy Dow, what do you think about my ins and outs?
No, they're pretty good. I think I was 50-50 on Dow. I think he's has to be close, doesn't he? I think he's getting about. I think he has to be leading the VFL BNF right now. I think he's up there. No, I agree. I think, you can look at it all different ways, but I think they all kind of work in a sense. And especially with Jack Martin as the sub, I definitely think he's a perfect kind of guy to have in, depending on how they wanted to do it. Like, do they want an O'Brien to be that run? I could have picked up Martin as well. So, it'll be very interesting what they do. But they tend to have one random in or out every time compared to ours. It's really weird. But when it comes to Thursday night after footy training, I check it and I'm like, what's going on here? There's only been like 2 changes. But no, there'll be a few changes, I think, come Thursday.
And then who knows, Daff, you might actually check the phone and be like, wait, Dom McKeowy, he's in. He's in, Daffy boy. So who knows? I mean, who knows what Voss is going to produce this week for the team lineups. But I think there will be a lot of changes. Whether there will be some omissions, we don't know. So, of course, now we move on to the back line. Of course, we're coming up against Melbourne's forward line, which it's probably one of their most underrated lines, in my opinion. I think their midfield is stacked. Their back line is stacked, but I think their forward line is they're a little bit underrated in a sense. But they're also, I'm not too. I think we probably could win this battle, but we'll of course touch on a few forwards from their sense and who we think might go to their forward. So, of course, Bailey Fritsch is a big one. It's going to be a talking point to see who one of our who's going to go to Fritsch, and of course Tom McDonald's the other one, and of course another name that will probably transition through there. That we'll touch on that will transition through there is a Brodie Grundy or a Max Gawn, of course, with the 2 rucks playing. But Dav, from our end, defenders with maybe some changes from our end. Who do you see having a big game from? But also, who do you see maybe taking these 2 or 3 names?
Yeah, I think Fritsch is their best forward. In my opinion, I think his goal. I think a few weeks ago it finally got broken, but I think he had 45 games straight with a goal. So that's pretty good going. And considering, I know he's like a medium forward, but we've got some forwards who barely kick goals. So he's a goal sneak. He knows where the goals are. So if you give him you do not want to give him the opportunity inside 50s. I tell you what, he's going to be kicking the goal. But he's a tough one, isn't he? Fritter. I think he's that kind of medium forward, but he's 6 foot. He's 6 foot. He's not short, but he's not, you know what I mean? But I think we've got some defenders to be able to cover that. I think Sardi will probably go to a Cozzy or one of their other smalls, and Chandler maybe, or Neil Bullen. But it is tough, isn't it, with Fritsch? I think last year, we might have had Marchie on him in that second last game. They're kind of similar kind of size-ish, in a sense. But no, he's a really tough one to pull my finger on. I'm not really sure. But I think with McDonald, I think he would probably go with Wiedering, in my opinion. Wiedering, or I think he just size-wise, I think they're both kind of big fellas. And hopefully Yangi comes into the side. He probably takes the ruckman in a sense. But I think they can both pick up either. I think with Wiedering, he can cover. He's he's a bit lack of height against a taller guy. Because you've seen it against, Coxes and other guys like that. He's pretty good. But and then also we've got, Cozzy Pickett, the man who kicked the winning goal last year. Unfortunately, I know a lot of Blues fans will remember that. But he's a dangerous one. You can't get him off the hook. And obviously we've got mids that go forward as well with Petraka. Viney kicks his goals, fair share of goals. They've got wingers who kick goals in Ed Langdon. That's where they get their goals, a lot of their goals from, through their midfield. And that's what we've lacked this year. I think that's why we're losing a lot of games, in terms of our mids haven't been producing forward of the ball as well as they have been. It's definitely the start of last year. So it'll be very interesting. I think it's their weakest line. I don't want to jinx it at all, but I think it's their weakest line for sure. I think our defenders were okay last week. I know Buddy's probably almost done, and they had McLean playing and that, but still they kept him to 77 of the SCG, and it's just a matter of, can our forwards score enough for our defenders to be able to defend a score? Like, you can't be defending scores like 50s and 60s. You just can't. So it'll be interesting, but they're very dynamic, unpredictable, similar to the Saints in a sense. I think they're better than the Saints, but I think in a sense their unpredictability actually helps them, because you don't know who's going to be the guy kicking the 4 or 5 goals. So it'll be very, very interesting, Pato. What are your thoughts? Because I think we can get it done.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think we can. This is probably the one line that I'm quite confident in. And another forward that we'll touch on also is Van Ruin. So he's the guy that is another sort of, he's probably classified as a key defender. He's listed at, I think, 193 centimeters. Yeah, 193. So that's classified as a key forward. So whether that means that a Brody Kemp goes straight to Van Ruin, but also who's going to take Fritsch? That's the other question. So
could be Gov.
It could be Gov, but I think I love Gov as that interceptor. So maybe Gov goes to Fritsch, and Chincotta is the guy that's going to be the interceptor, because he's playing in the VFL as that interceptor. What's he playing?
Yeah.
What's he playing that role for if he's not going to do it in the senior side? So that's my question. So I don't know what's going to happen. And this is what kind of excites me, because something new is going to happen with so many outs. Something new is going to happen. Something fresh is going to happen. Well, I hope. So, but yeah, I mean, there's a few names there, but I think the one guy probably that scares me the most is Cozzy Pickett is the guy. But I think Sardi is due for a big game as well, Daff. Don't know about you, but I think he's due for a big game. So if he can go to Cozzy Pickett and close him down, I think we're in for a pretty good sniff for that line. But of course, Cade Chandler and of course Charlie Spargo as well. They have kind of fleas in there that can really dominate a game. So we'll now move into the midfield, of course. So as we do every single week, we'll touch on 3 midfielders from our end and 3 midfielders from their end. So Paddy Cripps, Sam Walsh, and I was going to take out Adam Chera because I didn't think he was playing. But now that we found out that our lawyers are doing a lot more what the club is doing, I brought Adam Chera back in. So Chera, of course, is our last midfielder up against Petrarca, Jack Viney, and Angus Brayshaw. So 3 pretty big names from Melbourne's sense. But also our midfielders as well, those 3 big names and from our end as well, they're pretty handy. So I don't know. I think it's, once again, it's one of the lines that I think they're just a little bit better in. But also if we can kind of play our game, we can be better than them. It's just right now at this time, I'm just a little bit nervous because I know that they can be a lot more threatening than what our midfielders have been. But it's the hope of something can change. And one name that is there is Patrick Cripps. He's the guy that can reignite this club. I mean, what else could you ask for than the captain of the club to reignite his side, but also his individual performances as well. So that out of our three midfielders, but also their three midfielders as well. Also to touch on some other midfielders that you might think might dominate the game. Who do you think, and how do you see this battle playing out?
I think our mids have found the ball this year a lot of the time. I think we won a lot of clearance numbers, and with the news of Clayton Oliver not playing this week, I think that's massive. Yeah. I think that is huge. I think we can match up with him in the side, but I think he's that much of a clearance beast that he might take away some of our numbers in terms of clearances. So obviously, like you said, they've still got some stars in there: Petrarca, Viney, Brayshaw. They have other guys going through there. Pickett goes through there. Tom Sparrow goes through there. Neil Bullen goes through there. They've got some names through there. But you look at our names and you go, gee, these guys can get it done as well. And I think last year we should have beat them, and we didn't have Walsh, Kelly, Hewitt playing. We had Doc and Setterfield in the middle. And we won the clearance numbers that night. So I think there's a lot of pressure on them this week. In it, like Demons, I think there's a lot of pressure. They're in that kind of bracket of, if they lose this game, they get to that kind of vulnerable 5th to kind of 8th position. You know what I mean? I think they're a side that really should be getting the top 4 based on their list, similar to us as well. But obviously, yes, start of the season hasn't been as good. But geez, I think Walshy's the guy, based on your question, I think Walshy's the guy that can really break it open for us. I think he'll soon to be our best midfielder, I think, because I think once he gets his game going in terms of forward of the ball like he did last week, his score involvements, kicking goals, getting those big moments, I think he can really break it open for us. I think, what is he, 23 years old? He's missed the last 2 pre-seasons. So just about getting games into him and getting an impact going forward. So, but then you look at their side, and Petrarca and Viney are premiership players, and a consistency. You just got to respect them. You just got to show them respect, and hopefully we can win the battle and get it going our way more than their way.
Yeah, spot on. And I mean, I was shaking my head then about Sam Walsh, how he's still 23. Like, it feels like he's been around for ages. So for him to still be 23 and still have a decade of his AFL career still ahead of him, and what we're going to witness is pretty exciting to think about. You touched on there about how it's a big game for Melbourne, especially. So, of course, right now they're 4th on the ladder. Yeah. And of course, if St Kilda win, I don't know who's got the bye. So St Kilda have the bye. Yeah. If Western Bulldogs win, if Adelaide win, and if Essendon win, they drop down to as low as 7th because of course St Kilda have the bye, so they can't go lower than St Kilda. So it's a big game for them, because also if they lose, they drop out of the top 8. And I'm pretty sure Essendon's versus North Melbourne, and also Adelaide is versus Gold Coast. So it's pretty winnable. It's pretty winnable games from their end, but it's more to it. We shouldn't care about what it means for Melbourne. It's more to do with what it means for us. Because if we win, we go back up to 10th. And then we, of course, have Essendon the week after. Which is huge. That's a big game. That's a massive game. So I'm just, right now, I'm more looking at the draw that we got at the start of the season. So, of course, we're on 18 points. If we win, we then go to 22. So, I don't know. I'm not ruling any sort of result out. I still am quite, I'm not very confident that we'll win, but who knows, Duffy Boy? We don't know what the future holds. So, of course, we'll now move on to the Rucks. Of course, TDK is playing as that sole Ruck up against probably his biggest test yet, which is, of course, Max Gorn. But, of course, Brodie Grundy coming in as that second Ruck. I know that you mentioned during the potential inclusion stuff how you think that Silvani is going to come in as that second Ruck. I completely agree with you. With this matchup, especially with our Rucks and, of course, their Rucks as well, how do you see this playing out? And when Silvani does come in as that second ruck, how can we stop Gawn and Grundy?
It's pretty tough to stop Gawn on his own, I think. He was very, very good on his own. Now he's got his partner in crime in Brody Grundy, who's very, very handy. And I thought he could have been a target for us over the last few years. I think he's a perfect ruckman, perfect age bracket for Melbourne as well. So credit to them for getting that done. But well, it's interesting. Like I said before, I think it's TDK's time to really have a crack against two pretty good ruckmen. And, I think with Sauce, it's just about not breaking even, but just not being outplayed around the ground. I think that's what costs us with Pitto. I think that's his negative. I think he's just not good enough around the ground for my liking, which is interesting for a guy who we've signed for 4 years. So, but no, with TDK, I think it's huge for him. I think he's very similar to a Grundy in terms of their kind of willingness to get around the ground and be that kind of fourth midfielder. Obviously, Grundy's better, but currently, but I'm not too worried, but we just can't get dominated at this. Otherwise, we're going to be struggling at stoppage and clearance, because if we're not first to it through hit outs and stuff like that, which will be tough without Pitto as well, it could be a very, very long night at the office for the defenders.
Yeah, completely spot on. So I don't think I really have much to touch on there for the rucks. I think you shaped it out there perfectly. So we'll move on now to the forward line. This is probably the most important for line from our sense, because do we need a response? My word. And before we touch on our forwards and, of course, their defenders, Harry Mackay, we didn't. So we were speaking about after the review of Sydney, of course, that game that occurred, potentially dropping Harry Mackay. Right now, in this sense of time, if he produces another poor game, what do you see happening with Harry Mackay, Duff?
It's tough because he's definitely one of my favourites, but it's tough. I know we said that the other day about getting dropped. I think he'll be under pressure again if he does have another bad performance like that. But for mine, I know it's hard to say because we want to talk about selection integrity, but what is the benefit of him playing twos? Like, realistically, especially for our team, that's not getting many goals out of other blokes either.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, like if we had someone in the twos who was killing in the twos, like some tall forward, and you just go, yeah, he comes in, whatever. But we don't really. And I think with Harry, confidence-wise, you either give him a break from footy as a whole, which might not even help either, to be honest. I think he's mentally ready to play. I just think he's just down on confidence.
Yeah.
In terms of his goal kicking. But I think what frustrates me is that he's just costing games off his boot. And he knows that. He said it, and that's great, because I've not heard any accountability at this football club for a while. This season, there's been so much accountability, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
People go, it's all talk. But 3-4 years ago, we were getting nothing out of these players and CEOs and presidents. We were getting nothing out of these guys. No accountability whatsoever.
Yeah.
It didn't matter who it was. And now that we are finally taking accountability, people are saying, oh, it's all talk. But with him saying that, it's fantastic, because you know what he's feeling. Like, people go, oh, he doesn't even care. He does care. He cares more than us.
Yeah.
He's there at the ground every day.
Yeah.
Practicing, working on it.
Yeah.
He just needs to simplify it for mine. His routine, and just get back to the way he was playing, because I think around the ground his ball use is superb. I think he just needs, when he gets in front of goal, it's like there's the posts have moved closer. It's just like, you know what I mean? It's just, sometimes you have that kind of slump, not a slump, but sometimes when you're in front of goal, it's so much different to when you're just kicking to a teammate. You know what I mean? I don't know. I just think he needs to simplify it, and I just don't see the benefit of dropping him personally.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I know with me, I used to play as a forward, and when I wasn't kicking goals, I'd crack the shits and have a month off footy, Daffy boy. So, or I'd be shifted to the back line, because I'd just be like, nah, get out of the back, get out of the forward line, mate. You're costing us goals. But one more question before we move on, of course, to the forward line. We really want to touch on this. But last question for you, Daff, about Harry Mackay. Do you think with him, he needs more shots on goal, or does he need more ball in hand in terms of disposals up the ground? Because I know I would say he needs more shots on goal, but what do you like? How do you see it? Because this isn't going to happen overnight. It just needs to be. I think it needs to be something where he needs something different in his preparation for him to be prepared for the match. But do you see it more as you need to see him have more ball in hand in terms of disposals up the ground or shots on goal?
I think a bit of both. I think it was actually really dumb from our coaches last week to keep him deep after missing all those shots. He needs to go higher up the ground. I think that was a coaching issue there. Yeah, put Charlie deep and get him up the ground. I think they just needed to change something up there. I know Charlie's good up the ground as well, but you can clearly see there's an issue with his kicking on the night. Maybe just change it up a bit. But I do want him a little bit deeper. For mine, personally, like when he's on, I feel like he is deep, and it's like a 20 to 25 meter range where he's kicking goals. I don't think his snap is his issue currently. I think his actual drop punt is the issue. When he's straight in front or kind of on that left side, he's never been. Personally, I don't think he's ever really been a dead set kick. I don't really think he's been a dead-eye dick. And you can say all you like about a Coleman. I think he was 58 goals, 34 or something. So, no, it seriously was. I think I was looking at it today. He's never been, dead-eye dick like, I don't know, Melbourne. Look at Melbourne. They're the best kicking team in the league. And that's why they win games, because they don't need so many opportunities to kick goals. A lot of games, if you watch the first few quarters of the Demons, they might be, hanging on to a team, and they get a few entries, but they make the most of these entries. Like I said, with Fritsch and Tom McDonald, they might not be. I think Fritsch is good, but I think Tom McDonald's not a superstar, is he? Like, he doesn't have the attributes compared to a Harry Mackay does. The height and skill he does. But he when he has that opportunity, he's kicking the goal. So I think that's what our forwards just got to make the most of. And it wasn't good enough across the board on the weekend. I know Charlie missed a few, and it's just not good enough. And I thought he was good. Got enough of the ball, Charlie, but just in front of goal. We just need these. We would have won the game, Pato. We would have won the game last week. That's the issue. That's the issue I'm having. It's costing us. It's not like we're not getting it down there. Just got to fix it. Just got to fix it ASAP. Otherwise, we are buggered.
Yeah. And that's why I think there's just no way that this can be on Vossi and his coaching. Because we're getting the ball in there. There's so many supporters that are saying, nah, it's not Vossi. And we've been saying it from day dot that it's not Vossi. Because we're getting the ball in there, Daff. So, it's one question on the forward line. So, Harry Mackay and Charlie Curnow up against May and Lever. Who takes who? Because in the past seasons, it's been May on Mackay. But because of a form slump, do you see a change in that sort of matchup?
Yeah, nah. Oh, I think May has to stay on Mackay, just size-wise. I think Lever's obviously used that intercept when they have Petty down there, but I think Petty's injured, so it'll just be them two down there. I'm not sure who comes. They got a few good defenders actually down there that can kind of cover pretty well. But I think that'll be the matchups. Obviously, I rate them very highly. Stephen May and Lever, I think they're perfect defenders. They work well together. They've both been all Australian in their time, so it'll be a tough game. But I think the way Charlie's playing, considering our forward entries, I've never seen as bad forward entries by an AFL team ever. Like, that's just ever. And he's top of the Coleman. It's a good sign. But I think both of them need to combine for 8 for us to win, or 7 or 8. A lot of impact up the ground, taking some big grabs. That's where you can get Harry going. And with these two, we're just going to get around them. Because I know Charlie's in good form, but just get around him. I know it's hard when they're missing shots, but get around him. When he's taking big grabs, get around. Yell out, give him that support, and because I know that goes a long way to us winning the game of football. Because we're a big club, and with these two guys, they're always going to have the spotlight on them, whether they're playing good or bad. So, guys at North Melbourne or St Kilda, they might have a form slump, but they're not talking about them. What gets the media clicks is talking about Carlton and Collingwood and big clubs like that. Because seriously, the pressure is double at our club. Even though we haven't won a premiership in a while, haven't played finals in a while, our expectations are a lot higher than some other clubs. Just due to the history we've had and how that's been built over time. So But yeah, with the forward line, again, Smalls, get on the board. Jesse Mollop had 2 last week, but I thought he wasn't good enough again. He missed that easy set shot from about 15 out. If you're getting that opportunity this weekend, you've got to take it because I know Melbourne will take it on the opposite side of the ground.
Yeah. So of course, Hibbert is the other guy that might be able to transition as that intercept defender. So that's the other one where, like, maybe if Silvani is playing, maybe he goes to one of their intercept defenders, gives a Harry Mackay or a Charlie Kerner a little bit more space and a little bit more time so he can get a one-on-one genuine contest. But you spoke there about the whole small forwards, and I completely agree, Duffy boy. And I think one guy that I think could be in for a big night. Now, what are your thoughts, Daffy boy, before we move on to match predictions? Matt Owies. So last week he was a little bit down, didn't have a lot of shots on goal, but this week he gets a goal early. I'm talking the first 15 minutes. If he gets a goal early, I want everyone to just get around him because him and Cripps are probably the 2 guys, and probably a Charlie Kerner as well, probably the 3 guys that can, when they get a goal, lifts everyone up. And Matt Owies, if he kicks a goal early on Friday night, that needs to be the statement where this is the standard we're playing. We're only going to go up from here. So, Matt Owies, Daff, before we move on to match predictions, do you want to? Of course, you want to see a response from him, but how do you see his game on Friday night? And what do you think he needs to do more so he can have a little bit more impact on the scoreboard?
I think with particularly, Owies and our other small in Jesse Mollop, I think their massive, performance indicator for mine is pressure.
Yeah.
Pressure leads to goals. Pressure is gold in a sense, up forward. And I'm looking at names. You got Hibbert. You got a lot of good ball users out of that Melbourne backline. But if you put pressure on them, they can be a little bit wayward. So I got, obviously Jake Bowie's a good user of the ball. You got Trent Rivers, Christian Salem, Michael Hibbert. McVee's good as well. Stephen May's a good kick.
Yeah.
Lever's pretty decent. He's not the best, but he's all right. But they've got good users at a D50, don't they? But if you put that pressure on them, I know I've been to a few games this year. They seem to repeat, their kick outs. I think Stephen May, wait on Friday night and he'll do the same kick out 5 times in a row. Comes out to the members wing. I'll tell you right now, he goes on his left foot, he goes to the members wing. That's his kick out. It's his genuine kick out. He does it every single time. It is crazy. Like my old man's a Melbourne supporter, which is shit house, but he's a Melbourne. It's actually nuts. Like his kick outs actually end up going to the same wing a lot of the time. So if we're able to just make them repeat bad habits in a sense during the game, make them take the simple option rather than take the, that down the middle of the ground and make them play safe. That's when we can play into our own hands and get going. So, but yeah, Matty Owies, I think he'll get on the board this weekend, Pat. I think he's going to have a big one. He's get a roll up, guys like Stephen May and Lever, they get a little bit angry sometimes, a little bit of a bump. Matty Owies, the 40 gamer getting into these superstars, but good on him. I do like Matty, but get on the board this weekend, Matty, please.
Yeah. I absolutely love Matty Owies, but all right, if I see this one more time, when they kick it every single time we play, and it's the opposition, they always kick out, right? It's always through the pockets. Then their next kick is to the wing. They somehow find some sort of a way to get a mark. Then they'll find like 3 or 4 kicks to get into the borderline.
Can't happen.
Every single time. So I just want to, if that happens in the first 5 minutes, I'm walking out, Daffy boy. I'm just walking out. I'm kidding. But of course, last segment that we'll touch on is the all reliable match predictions. I think we're pretty. We're pretty. What's the word I'm looking for? I think we are pretty spot on most of the weeks with these matches. I'm obviously kidding because we've tipped Carlton every week. So, Daffy boy, best on ground, point of difference, winner plus margin.
It's always a interesting time of the video. I think in our minds where our brain somehow tries to choose Carlton. It's pulling us into that direction. But for my BOG, I've got Sam Walsh again. I think he can take on this Melbourne midfield and just start to, there's all this little chatter in the background about him, which is kind of frustrating me, and I just don't want that. I want to be able to trust him to be able to put on a 30-touch, game and a couple of goals on the board. So, Sammy Walsh, best on ground for mine. Point of difference, it's going to be the debutant Jackson Binns. His ball use, I'm telling you, his ball use going forward is better than a lot of our blokes currently. So he's going to be our point of difference, Binsy, if he plays. Hopefully, fingers crossed for him, because I think he deserves it. I think he's had 25 every game, and his ball use takes on a lot of kicks that he does. It's like that kicks on, and then he hits the target. It's stuff that we need to see more of in our ones actual sides. So be interesting with him in the side. Winner plus margin. My brain's telling, my heart's telling me Carlton, Pato, but my brain's telling me I'm going to go with Melbourne by 13 points.
Yeah. So now for my point of difference, I swear to God, if there is another time that I pick someone for point of difference and they're not playing, I'm just about to give up with this podcast. But once again, I'll start with the point of difference. Zach Fisher. So he's a guy that might not play, but he could play. We don't know. Hopefully, this is when the streak ends this week, and hopefully Zach Fisher is playing, so it gives me some sort of a chance to have a point in difference. So Zach Fisher, I reckon if he was to come in, he needs to well and truly get his spot in the best 22, and hopefully he can really get up and going for his season, and hopefully really try and reignite this side towards a finals berth this season, hopefully. But best on ground, Patrick Cripps. I've got Cripps. And I'm telling you this right now, Daff. If he can lift his side, we've been talking about it so much. If he can lift his side and have an individual performance, he's the most inspirational player out there. So if he's having a crack, the player behind him will have a crack, and the player behind him will have another crack as well. So it just needs to be, as a team, everyone just has to reignite, and hopefully they can actually play for the supporters rather than themselves in a way. So winner plus margin. I want to go Carlton so bad. But you have to be smart, and unfortunately, I've gone the D's. I was going to do a 1 point like you did, Daffy Boy, last week, but I've gone D's by 4. And my reasoning for that is if we lose by 4 and we play a good brand of football, not necessarily an honourable loss, but just a new brand of football. That's all I'm asking for. And if we lose to a side like Melbourne, I reckon it will be a pretty good game. And I don't know. I just am excited to hopefully see a new brand of football. But of course, that is the last segment of the episode. Daffy Boy, is there anything else you want to touch on before the episode is done?
Just get down there on Friday again, Blue Bag, as I say it every week. I keep sucking some people in to get down to games because there's nothing much in return currently these days, is there, or at all in our lives. But you just got to have that little bit of belief. That's what's getting me to the game on Friday night. Bit of belief. Got to believe. Get around these boys, because I know season isn't over yet. It isn't over yet, but I know I 100% agree with you with the whole, like, if it's a 4-point loss and I see a good brand of footy, if I see a loss and it's another shit brand of footy, then it's just a waste of time. But I think if we're in that position to win the game, you got to win the game.
Yeah.
Because I think it's getting to the crunch time of the season where wins against these top 8 teams are incredibly important, because we've dropped some terrible games this year. So it's going to be important to get a win against them. And I think it's 7:50 on Friday night. So rug up, people.
Yeah. I'm just so... I've said excited, but there's another word I'm looking for. It's too late for me at night, Daffy Boy. I've been working all afternoon. I'm too tired, but there's another word I'm thinking of, and it's a line in the sand sort of... God, I have like a bloke nose, Daffy Boy. It's a line in the sand sort of performance this week if we can get up and about, because as we've spoken about, we can move from this week. If we can get a win, if not just a good brand of football and a close loss, take it on for the rest of the season, because the season is still well and truly alive. Like right now, we're 12th on the ladder. We're still well and truly in the hunt for the 8. And if we can just somehow find a way to get through the next few weeks, somehow find some confidence, those last few rounds, last 8 or 9 rounds is going to matter massively. So I don't know. I'm just excited to see some sort of a new brand of football, a revamp of our game style. But Daffy Boy, absolute pleasure as always having you on the episode. And make sure to all the viewers like, comment, subscribe on YouTube, but of course on all the podcast platforms that we're on, whether it's Spotify, Amazon Music, whether it's Apple Music. There's so many out there that we're on. So make sure to share the podcast around to anyone you know who might enjoy hearing us talk about the baggers every single week. But Daffy Boy, absolute pleasure as always. And to all the baggers out there, up the baggers.